it rolling, Bob?
Is it rolling, Bob?
Is it rolling, Bob?
Hi folks, this is Chris Gregory here, and this is Bob Dylan, a Headful of Ideas, a series of podcasts where we're looking in quite a lot of detail at lots of Bob Dylan songs. Today I'm going to be looking at what you might call a deep cut. This is No Time to Think from 1978's Street Legal, and this is subtitled The Empress Attracts You. Begin with a couple of quotes. First one, very well known, from Macbeth by William Shakespeare. Tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow creeps in this petty pace from day to day, to the last syllable of recorded time, and all our yesterdays have lighted fools the way to dusty death. And the second one is from Richard Nixon's instructions that instigated Watergate. God damn it, get in and get those files. Blow the safe and get it. No Time to Think from 1978 Street Legal is one of Bob Dylan's most painful and emotionally wrought works. He's never played it in concert, and there are few cover versions, none by well-known artists. Its narrator, who mainly refers to himself in the second person, is deeply troubled, not only because of his own situation, but also because of the state of the world. The song is a medium-paced waltz anchored by a repetitive drum pattern. All 9 verses and choruses follow an identical rhythmic and lyrical structure. Dylan's vocals also maintain more or less the same tempo. At the end of every verse, sax player Steve Douglas plays a light counter melody with little variation. 3 female vocalists back him up on the choruses, which mostly begin with 4 abstract nouns and end with the repeated refrain of the title phrase. The repetitive musical and lyrical format emphasizes the narrator's disturbed state of mind from which it seems there's no escape. He presents himself as an unpleasant, completely self-absorbed and potentially violent character. As well as making a number of literary allusions, the song also seems to be influenced by the techniques of modern art, especially the work of Picasso. In Tangled Up in Blue and some of the other songs from Blood on the Tracks, Dylan had introduced a cubist perspective through which events were often seen from different viewpoints at the same time. Here, the verses are presented more as a series of abstract impressions, all building up a picture of one person or possibly a series of people. As in the album opener, Changing of the Guards, Dylan makes a number of overt and covert references to the symbolic characters of the tarot, the system through which individuals confront specific archetypal character types in order to discover the nature of their own person and thus perhaps their own individual destinies. But whereas that song ends in a kind of triumph, the narrator of No Time to Think seems to have laid out a particularly negative spread. The song begins, "In death you face life," immediately suggesting that the narrator might be on his deathbed, looking back on all his unresolved, uncomfortable issues. Various allusions in the first verse and the following chorus appear to evoke Shakespeare's Macbeth. The narrator has a wife who sleepwalks through your dreams into walls, which recalls Lady Macbeth's descent into madness as she attempts to assuage her guilt over the regicide of Duncan. Like Macbeth, the narrator thinks of himself as a soldier of mercy who concludes that who cannot be trusted must fall. As Macbeth's paranoia grows, he even applies this logic to his best friend, Banquo, who he has murdered. In a more obvious allusion, Dylan sings, "You fight for the throne and you travel alone, unknown as you slowly sink, and there's no time to think." The first list in the chorus begins with loneliness, tenderness, high society, notoriety. As the early scenes with his wife show, Macbeth is certainly capable of tenderness, which is why he is such a movingly tragic figure. He certainly achieves notoriety when he murders his way into high society. In the end, he cuts a lonely and isolated figure, The opening of the song thus identifies the narrator as a potentially honourable character who, like Macbeth, is becoming utterly corrupted. In the next 4 verses, we may imagine that the song's protagonist has laid out his tarot deck and is meditating on specific figures. We are told that the Empress attracts you, but oppression distracts you, makes you feel violent and strange. In the tarot, the Empress is an Earth Mother figure who radiates love and warmth, but the Ten of Wands is a violent character who's identified as a figure of oppression. The narrator, like Macbeth, is caught between these cosmic forces, but the negative elements appear to be winning out. We are transported to the Federal City, which may refer either to Washington, D.C. or any American state capital, but is certainly a site for potential political corruption. The narrator is said to have been blown and shown pity in secret for pieces of change, and to have been betrayed by a kiss on a cool night of bliss. The mention of pieces of change and being betrayed by a kiss evoke the character of Judas Iscariot, another archetypal figure whom the narrator appears to be comparing himself to. In succeeding verses, the narrator continues to be caught between good and evil forces. He tells himself that the country priestess will want you, her worst is better than best. The country priestess may refer to the high priestess, another positive figure from the tarot, who represents intuition and depth of feeling. But the narrator appears to be under the spell of the darker figure of the magician, who we are informed is quicker and his game is much thicker than blood and blacker than ink. The narrator tells himself that Mercury rules you and destiny fools you. Mercury, who in ancient Roman mythology is the messenger of the gods, is generally associated with the magician. The first lines of the choruses depict the contradictory elements that are competing for his soul. Memory, ecstasy is succeeded by tyranny, hypocrisy, while the following sequence of China doll, representing fragility, alcohol, duality, mortality, suggests that he is losing his inner struggle against the dark forces. The next litany, paradise, sacrifice, mortality, reality, again takes us through a sequence of disillusionment. Paradise here is certainly being lost. On certain lines, in a Picasso-like change of perspective, Dylan briefly switches to a first-person address. I've seen all these decoys through a set of deep turquoise eyes, he sings. Dylan's eyes are famously blue. We may wonder whether he is interjecting his own perspective here. If so, the confession that follows, I feel so depressed, indicates that although he sees through all the false promises that the magician is making, he can see no way out of his situation. Further evidence of his own corrupted state follows. Your conscience betrayed you when some tyrant waylaid you, where the lion lies down with the lamb, presents another dichotomy. The lion lies down with the lamb is a biblical phrase depicting a paradisical state, but which has clearly been corrupted. In response, the I figure declares rather startlingly, as if he is some hard case mafia don, that I'd have paid off the traitor and killed him much later, but that's just the way that I am. He seems to be showing his true colours here. The magician now has him under his control. We hear that vomit and jealousy is all that he sells us. He's content when you're under his thumb. The narrator continues to try to think positively, yearning for equality, liberty, humility, simplicity. But this is futile. In lines that, in their shifting perspectives, again recall a Cubist painting, it is suggested that you glance through the mirror and there's eyes staring clear at the back of your head as you drink, and there's no time to think. No time to think, indeed. The following verses depict a descent into hopelessness in which the narrator is inexorably drawn towards a state of depression and possible madness. We hear that you've murdered your vanity, buried your sanity, a line which recalls Macbeth hath murdered sleep, a confession of the guilt that will lead to both himself and his wife losing their grip on reality. The narrator tells himself that he must now resist all pleasures, especially those of the flesh. He confesses that lovers obey you, but they cannot sway you. which is rhymed with the devastating, "They're not even sure you exist." The narrator's reason for living is now so opaque that he seems to be becoming transparent. He is fading away like a ghost. Political and social ideologies like socialism, hypnotism, patriotism, materialism are of no use, the product of fools making laws for the breaking of jaws. Now there is nowhere to run. The narrator's destiny is fixed. The tense, enjambed lines, "The bridge that you travel on goes to the Babylon, girl with the rose in her hair," may indicate that he is contemplating the tarot card Strength, which features a girl who wears roses in her hair. A lion, who was presumably laid down with the lamb, sits peacefully on her lap. The narrator glimpses some hope in the form of starlight in the east, which is commonly associated with Venus, the Roman goddess of love. But he remains stranded with nothing to share. In Babylon, the biblical paradigm of a crooked and evil political system, which at this time was often being referenced by Bob Marley and other Rastafarian singers. Dylan's cynical distrust of the machinations of political institutions is well known. Perhaps the narrator is a politician who has been utterly corrupted by such systems. America in the 1970s had a prime example of such a figure in the disgraced President Richard Nixon, who was forced to resign after the Watergate scandal. Finally, the narrator is depicted as being spiritually bereft. He's been stripped of all virtue and reduced to penury and desperation. Any compassion he had for the others has deserted him. We are told that as he crawls through the dirt, he can give, but he cannot receive. The concluding chorus employs repetition and internal rhymes to emphasize that he has indeed finally run out of time. He has no time to choose when the truth must die, no time to lose or say goodbye, and more disturbingly, no time to prepare for the victim that's there, no time to suffer or blink, and no time to think. It seems that, like Macbeth or Nixon or even Hitler, he is now trapped till the last syllable of recorded time in a state of utter amorality. Mass murder or holocausts may follow. Many commentators have linked the moral and spiritual confusion displayed in the songs of Street Legal as indicators of an inner malaise that can be linked to Dylan's sudden conversion to Christianity, which will occur towards the end of the 1978 tour, just a few months after Street Legal was released. The narrators he sings through on the album are desperately in search of spiritual clarity. In No Time to Think, he portrays a character who's experienced a kind of spiritual death. Dylan is profoundly influenced by symbolist poets like Rimbaud, Verlaine, Poe, and Blake. But now he finds the ambiguity of symbolism itself not empowering, but overwhelming, even suffocating. In No Time to Think, he appears to be overburdened by the demands of being regarded as a visionary by his followers. In order to try to resolve this problem, he has attempted to explore the arcane symbolism of the tarot, but he still struggles to see a clear path through the densely overlapping symbolism that the cards represent. Perhaps, ironically, he's been thinking too much. Yeah, do give a listen to that song if you don't know it. There's more to it than meets the eye. That's it for today. Please like and subscribe and go and have a look at my website. That's from the pen of Chris Gregory at www.chrisgregory.org. There's a couple of books I've written on Bob Dylan you can get there. And there's lots of articles and podcasts on Bob Dylan and other subjects on that website. Thanks very much for listening. See you next time. Bye.
Is it rolling, Bob?
Is it rolling, Bob?
Is it rolling, Bob?